Good morning, everyone. I'm always a little too tall for these mics. Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome. I think we are ready to officially get started. Can you all hear me okay? I always have mic issues because of the heights at podiums. Okay, I'll just hold it. So good morning, everybody. Welcome. My name is Alice Mishkin, and I have had the real pleasure of serving as the interim director of Jclp over the past year. And I'm just so pleased to welcome you all, especially to our first in-person graduation since 2019. Yes. So I'm really glad that so many of you can join us here at the School of Social Work, and we're able to have folks who are joining us online. So thank you. That's the one pandemic silver lining, I think, as we realized how to do hybrid events. So thank you all for being here to support the graduates. I want to also thank our first-year students who have been helping support us today. And I especially want to thank Paige Walker, who's in the back of the room. Paige is Jclp's program coordinator, and she's really been running the show probably the entire year, but especially today. So thank you, Paige, for all that you've done. All right, so I am really, really delighted to welcome you to the celebration of our 7 graduating students: Claire, Moss, Erica, Miriam, Emily, Ezra, and Rachel. So perhaps more than any graduating class, this year's cohort has had to practice over and over again, and perhaps they did not want to practice it so much, resilience. I imagine at this time last year, with COVID numbers dropping and vaccines becoming widely available, many of you, like me, were thinking, great, pandemic's over, next year's gonna look a lot closer to normal than this year. We were a little wrong about that, but we were still really grateful to be largely in person this year for Jclp seminar, for our orientation, for site visits to local Jewish communities, and community events and celebrations like this one. But we still really felt some losses this year due to COVID. We went virtual during Omicron, and we missed out on a number of travel opportunities. However, this year's students rose to these challenges, and they created new opportunities for community building and for really important learning. Through our first ever Jclp Shabbaton to an incredible communal conversation that addressed the Jewish response to climate change, this year's graduating class worked hard to create an experience that, while it might not have been what they thought it would be when they came into graduate school, it was still one that I think they can look back on with pride and appreciation for the relationships they built and all that they accomplished. Rachel's taking a moment to appreciate. So I want to give you a sense of all that Jclp is and what I'm talking about when I say that these students have accomplished so much this year and last year. So this class is the 10th graduating class of Jclp. It's our 10-year anniversary. And over the decade, Jclp has really grown in terms of what it offers students and in terms of what it asks of students. So students graduating today have taken a ton of classes. In addition to a full course load for social work, they have taken 5 Judaic studies classes and a weekly seminar to earn their certificate in Jewish communal leadership. They've also been enrolled in field placements, working 16 hours a week, doing things like seeing clients at Jewish Family Services, doing fundraising and community organizing work at Jewish Federation and Detroit Jews for Justice, and working at many other organizations. In addition to all that, they've also planned and run an orientation for first-year students. They, as I mentioned, ran a communal conversation for our broader Jewish community. They met with leadership in the School of Social Work and the university to give feedback on experiences of anti-Semitism. And they visited Jewish communities in Detroit, Metro Detroit, and Ann Arbor. And tonight, most of them are going to Cleveland for the JPro conference, so they're really not done. They've done all this while navigating a pandemic, which is really just a way of saying they're not just finishing grad school. They've done a tremendous amount of learning, provided so much labor, and created and participated in a really vibrant Jewish community. So I just want to applaud them again. We'll do a lot of applauding today. And I just want to say that I'm really incredibly proud of the work and commitment that these students have put into making this year so wonderful. In my role this year, I've had the honor of getting to know each of them. and the unique strengths that they bring to social work, to Jclp, and to the Jewish community. And I'll share a bit and embarrass them all a little bit more in detail later. But for now, I'll just close with a quick overview of our program today. So we'll hear from School of Social Work Interim Dean Joe Himley and Interim Director of the Frankel Center for Judaic Studies, Scott Spector. Both the School of Social Work and the Frankel Center for Judaic Studies have been really huge supporters and champions of Jclp, and we really couldn't do this work without them. So I really want to thank Joe and Scott for your support. After that, we'll hear from our keynote speaker, Jclp's regular director, Carla Goldman, who will be introduced by one of our graduating students, Emily Gordon. And then we'll hear speeches from each of our graduating students, each of whom will be introduced by one of our first-year students. And then I'll come back and close with handing out certificates and gifts to the graduating students. And in closing, Moss and Rachel will lead us in a song before we head out to the Commons or outside, if the weather permits, for a reception. So thank you all, and I'll invite Dean Joe Himley up.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. It's a great turnout. It's really great to be here together on this day. It is a wonderful occasion. I'm honored to be serving as the interim dean of the School of Social Work, and we're really excited to be with you all here today, our graduates and your families, special guests. The Jewish Communal Leadership Program has clearly been an integral part of our school, and we're pleased to be celebrating this 10th year anniversary with you. Congratulations to the graduates in earning your degrees and certificates in Jewish communal leadership. You've achieved so much during 2 really difficult years, I think. Through your field placements, your social work courses, and your Judaic study courses, you've certainly accomplished a lot. The knowledge and experience you've gained and the connections you've made with each other, most importantly, will prove to be essential as you move forward in your next career journey. We're proud to be sending you out into the world as leaders and future social workers. We know that you'll do incredible work and to serve communities in need. And as we say in social work, graduates, reach out, raise hope, change society, and of course, always go blue.
I'll invite Scott Spector to join us now.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for having invited me. I just want to say some sort of informal words about the special partnership that the Frankel Center and LS&A in general has with the School of Social Work for this very special program. It's something I think that we kind of lose sight of, the extremely high quality of the School of Social Work overall, and of the Frankel Center within LS&A is already something incredible that informs this program. But what's unique is this partnership across schools. And it's really, you see it in the students who come out of it and the work they do later and the work they do while they're here. So it's really something that we cherish in the Frankel Center, that we're able to have this kind of connection with students in the School of Social Work, have them also in our classes, and have the kinds of work that come out of academic study of Jewish studies inform and in turn be informed by people who are really here to prepare themselves to, not to put too fine a point on it, change things, to really change things in our society and in our world. It's something that everyone who teaches in the Frankel Center has come into contact with and is aware of, and it is something that we deeply appreciate. I'd like to say that every Jclp student that I've met is incredible in their own way, but very particularly impressive to me this year has been Alice Mishkin, who, please. while, in a program of study herself, has taken over the difficult role of running things. I think that she told me that she's just finished her prospectus, so that's also extra applause for that. But and she's jumped in for Carla Goldman, who is our shared faculty member in Jclp, in the School of Social Work, and in LSNA in the Frankel Center, and who's really the keystone of this whole thing, being able to hold together what is difficult, to navigate between two different schools. So really, Carla, I'm glad Carla's here. I'm glad she had her year of leave. But she's been here, for several events that I've also seen. The last thing I'd like to say is the elephant in the room is, I think it should be acknowledged that this has been a particularly challenging, difficult time to be in a master's program, to be in school at all. And I think that, while these challenges and difficulties are things that may have brought with them disappointments, difficulties of various kinds, I think that that's reason to congratulate yourselves for having come through and accomplished what you've accomplished at a time like this. You know that the Talmud, the Bible, the Torah, but also the Quran, the Christian Bible, and Christian teachings all have various versions of an understanding of the ways in which challenges, difficulties, and even pain bring with them rewards that are often not recognized immediately. And I think if you can think about that now, and also as you move forward, you will have this to look back on. You say in Yiddish, men tracht, Gott lacht. It means, the human beings, we plan, but God only laughs. You don't know what will come. But it's really, it's difficult, of course, to, treasure the difficulties of life. But I hope that you're able, moving forward, to really recognize what this has shown you about yourselves and what it's given you to give back to the world in the voyage that I know you're now all being launched on. So thank you in advance for helping save the world.
Thank you, Scott. So Emily will come up and introduce our keynote speaker.
Okay. I am so happy to introduce our keynote speaker, Carla Goldman. Carla is the Sol Drackler Professor of Social Work and Professor of Judaic Studies here at University of Michigan, and she directs our Jewish Communal Leadership Program. With primary interests in Jewish women's history and American Jewish communities, Carla was previously historian in residence at the Jewish Women's Archive and associate professor of American Jewish history at Hebrew Union College Jewish Institute of Religion in Cincinnati. She is known for her book, Beyond the Synagogue Gallery, Finding a Place for Women in American Judaism. We of the class of 2022 invited Carla to be our keynote speaker because of how supportive she was during our first year. We were learning entirely online due to the pandemic, and Carla gave us something invaluable, a sense of normalcy, or the closest thing to it. We could almost forget about the world around us for 3 hours each Wednesday night during seminar, as we discussed and sometimes argued over what the future might hold, the future of our nation, of American Jewish communities, and our own personal futures as social workers and Jewish communal leaders. Carla helped us learn about who we are and who we want to be in Jewish communal spaces, while also urging us to contemplate what we bring to and what we take away from those spaces. We will never be able to fully explain how much this experience has meant to us. We miss Carla's guidance and wisdom this year, and we look forward to engaging with her as Jclp alumni. Please join me in welcoming Carla Goldman.
Thank you so much, Emily. And thank you to the graduating students for offering me this honor of speaking today and the opportunity to welcome you all to Ann Arbor, to the School of Social Work. And, you know, it's a cliche this weekend to say how wonderful it is not just to see you, but really to be with you. And we have some alumni here. I'm very glad. We had wonderful graduations with them, but we weren't able to be with them, so I'm particularly glad that they could join us today. And it's really meaningful to have this opportunity to reflect on Jclp on this 10th anniversary of our first graduation in 2012. That occasion featured an address by our good friend, Harleen Appelman, the now recently retired executive director of the Covenant Foundation. Though I need to acknowledge, and it's perhaps a little sad for me today, that the highlight of Jclp graduations is rarely the wisdoms shared by our amazing speakers. Really, it has always been the words of the students themselves, because it is in hearing from them at the end of their 20 months, as Alice pointed out, of really intense learning, professional training, and community, that you will best be able to understand not just the PR about what we hope Jclp will be, can be, but what it has actually been and meant for them. In stepping back from my direct work with Jclp, which is both a blessing and a loss to not be able to continue to grow with these students so intensely over the past year, but in thinking about my remarks for today, I've thought a lot about my early hopes for what we, as a small group coming together with goodwill in the Jewish Communal Leadership Program, could achieve. I thought about the afternoon I spent in 2008 in a Panera in Brookline, Massachusetts with a friend as we sat working to come up with what we hoped would be a great tagline for the program. And we came up with prepared for challenge, poised for change. I don't know if you're familiar with that. But I was trying to describe what I hoped these people sitting here, how they would emerge at the end of their work at the School of Social Work. I'll admit that I hoped that we'd be able to model a microcosm of what Jewish community could be. That we would see as challenge and change came at us, and wow, they have come at us in ways that I could never imagine in 2008, before the crash in 2008, and never imagined 10 years ago. Has just come at us with such vehemence that I'm not even going to attempt to sort of give you a listicle right now of all of that has been, but we all know of the things that we've been through in the last 10 years. But that we, I hoped, would be able to manage it. That not because we would all agree with each other, but because we could listen to each other, and because we would choose to take on the most difficult issues rather than avoid them, as was happening, I thought, in too many places in the Jewish community. Now, I found out pretty quickly that just having a small group and hopes for goodwill would not be enough if we really wanted to ask hard questions about our community. There were times when deep disagreements over truly existential questions of Jewish survival in our varied styles made it impossible for some within Jclp to hear or respect others in the group. We needed something more. Before we could listen to and learn from each other, we would need to believe that the work it took to do so would be worth it. As any quick scan of social media will tell you, we could not develop our own strength as individuals or as a group, or make contributions beyond ourselves if we spent our energy tearing each other down. In thinking about the challenge of what it takes to build collective strength, I have turned to the text of two different communities from different eras. One group is Jclp students, past and present. The other community, which has been on my mind a lot this year, is a 19th century community of Jewish Cincinnati. And I wanted to share a little bit about that, popular demand. But unfortunately, I found out that it takes me like 5 pages even to wind up to be able to share some insights about that community. So I want to just sort of cut to the chase and share with you the response I give my mother to reassure her when she asks, really? Why are you working so much on Jews in Cincinnati? And it's this question. Why were they, I see you, Perry. I see you, Hannah, wherever you are. Why were they right? The ones who created the first successful national institutions of Jewish life in the United States. In particular, the first long-lasting American rabbinical school, and there's another lecture there about what's happening in Cincinnati today. Other communities were older, wealthier, had more Jews, or more Jewish scholars. So why did these things happen in Cincinnati? Rather than tell you that whole story and show you my PowerPoint, I'll cut to the spoiler here. There were a number of elements that differentiated Cincinnati Jews at that time in the 1870s. The first was their leader, Isaac Mayer Wise, who arrived in the city in 1854 with a contract for life in his pocket and bold visions and grand schemes in tow. But even Wise, who started 2 newspapers and much else upon his arrival in the city, found that his dearest ambition, which was to create a Zion college, a school in which to teach Judaism and train American rabbis, was a non-starter. 2 decades and a civil war later, when he tried again, he had a community behind him, willing to invest their resources in the vision for a Hebrew Union college. The scraggly group of young adolescents who gathered before him to begin their rabbinical studies in 1875 did little to dent the loftiness of his vision, as he declared, "This college brings down the Shekhinah, God's presence, not only upon this city, but upon the American Israel, upon the great and glorious land. So the glory shall return to Zion." He had very small expectations for his work there. And this community and his community stood with him, willing to trust that 8 years down the road, these pimply boys would turn into refined and cultured American rabbis. We start with a much better material. When the day of ordination came in 1883, one observer declared, "This is the greatest day of civilization I have lived to see." So what did it take? What came together in Cincinnati at that time that was lacking elsewhere? It was a combination of things: vision, hard, continuous work, trust, community, and of course, resources. Wise's bold plans and grand schemes were nothing until others invested in them as well and made them their own. Generative visions, like those of Wise for what turned out to be the American Reform Movement, or of others, like Henrietta Zold and her sense of what the 1912 creation of Hadassah could mean for American Jewish women. That's another lecture. But they both created space and opportunity for what? For others to enter, to imagine, to create, and to grow. Their visions were only visions until others found meaning in them. But when that happened, Jewish Cincinnatians and later Hadassah volunteers were able to transform American Judaism, and in the case of Hadassah, American and world Zionism as well. And not to be too grandiose, but our experience in the Jewish Communal Leadership Program may not be so different, and it too holds out the possibility of transformation. As I've listened to the reflection shared by our graduating students in recent years, and as you will have the opportunity today, I've felt intense gratitude to see the way that many of my hopes in developing JCLP have been realized. But I also recognize that our shared vision grew from what our students have brought to it over many years. For instance, there was the moment after our first generative communal conversation 10 years ago focused on what is Jewish Detroit, when a student named Alice Mishkin spoke up to say, "That's what we should do. Second-year students should always plan a communal conversation." You know who to thank. Or when the orientation planned by second-year students centered the question of how to have difficult conversations, telling them, "You need to learn this. This is what we need to be able to do in the Jewish Communal Leadership Program." Or the annual alumni seminars with local alumni where they shared their conviction that the way to get the most out of JCLP was to truly show up and contribute as much as you could. At recent graduations, our students, now alumni, have described a program we would all want to be a part of. The following mashup is from one of the classes, describing an experience that was equal parts passion, confrontation, and growth, a place to explore Jewish identity in ways I never could before, a weekly meeting of a crack team of experts, something like Jewish Super Friends, committed to rigorous intellectual inquiry and meaningful discourse, commissioned to transform Jewish community and rectify all of the world's problems. And while being at the same time something akin to a family, a source of joy, celebration, humor, and support. And even as one student shared, the most affirming, non-judgmental Jewish community, maybe any community, that I've ever been a part of. Now, this doesn't always happen, of course, and each group has to work really hard to get to the point where they're able to share thoughts like that. But when we do manage to get it right, we are able to create a space that makes us all better. S.E. Shachar Hill in 2018 described what might have been some distant city on a hill, but is, when we're at our best, Jclp. A place where all are included and made to feel valuable, where good intent is always assumed, where Jews of all backgrounds work together and contribute different perspectives, where we can and do disagree vehemently and still love and respect each other, where young people feel invested in the community and empowered to take charge, where we live our values, a space of moral courage and audacious leadership, where we challenge and comfort each other, a place where I feel at home. As reflected in those quotations, and as will emerge further, I'm sure, in the words of those who speak after me, there's at least one more needful ingredient that goes into building communities that make a difference. Whether it was present in the days of Isaac Mayer Wise, I'm not sure. But I know we need it now in the difficult days that we are traversing. That ingredient first surfaced for me most tangibly over that Jclp graduation weekend 10 years ago. As I was leaving an informal get-together organized by the graduates, I remember asking Ilana when she would be leaving town, and the little break in my heart when she said, Monday. And what should have not been a shocking realization, but was that this group with whom I had navigated so much over the previous 20 months were no longer going to be in my life in the same way that they had been. It's always a bitter pill to take, bittersweet, I guess we say. As I got into my car in a somewhat teary state, my then 8-year-old son, who was with me, asked, "Do you love your students, Carla?" And I had to say, "Yes, Joey, I guess I do." For the last decade and more, Jclp has given me my most important Jewish community outside of my family, and the true gift of learning from each cohort and each participant, and an outside measure as well of hope through these difficult times. It's been a growth-filled journey, frustrating, gratifying, amazing, often at the same time. This has not been an easy decade for our Jewish, national, or global lives. But I know that our work together has created a space for productive engagement, hard questions, and the ability to learn from each other without freezing them in time. As our alumni bring the skills they've developed here to their careers and lives and communities, I believe that along with their predecessors, they will find themselves prepared for challenge and poised for change, well able to contribute to making all of our communities stronger, more hopeful, and more resilient. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may it be all our will, and go blue.
Carla. I don't take responsibility for the comment about the communal conversation, but I do echo all the sentiments about what an incredible community Jclp is. So we will turn now to hear from students. We'll begin with Ezra Brown, who will be introduced by Ilana. And if you prefer, there's this mic. You choose.
Hi, all. My name is Alana Lambert, and I'm really excited to introduce Ezra today. Ezra and I first talked last summer on the phone. We talked about his field placement, his schoolwork, and also he gave me a very brief intro to the Jewish communal landscape. And I remember I left the phone call being just very impressed with all the different things he was balancing and the way he was so eloquently able to describe to me what he had been doing the past year. And then I got to Ann Arbor and I learned he plays the trombone and he loves Michigan sports and cooking and going to concerts. And then he started posting in our group chat all the time, come to this sports game with me or come to this concert with me. And so besides being this really dedicated student, he was also our Michigan event cheerleader for us. Beyond being a cheerleader, in the group chat and getting us to go to events, he was always checking in on us and how we're doing with our readings and our papers and giving us class advice, which is really invaluable to hear that, especially from someone in your cohort who you know cares about you and also went through the experience themselves. So I've learned that Ezra brings a reliability, a critical lens, and drive to every space he enters. So I'm so excited to see what's next for you because I know it's going to be great. So congratulations.
Thank you so much, Alana, for that lovely introduction. Let me set the scene for you. Early March 2020, I had only 2 months left of undergrad at U of M, was ready to go out with a foreseeable bang of sorts, and was eagerly starting to look for jobs working in a development role for U of M. I wasn't quite done with Ann Arbor yet. Throw in my favorite time of the year, March Madness, where, as a member of the basketball band, I got to travel with the team to both the Big Ten and NCAA tournaments. It was sure to be an exciting end to my collegiate career. On March 11, 2020, as I was on a bus with the basketball pep band en route to the Big Ten tournament in Indianapolis, we all got the news that classes were moved online, the tournament was canceled, and instead of cheering on the basketball team in Indy, I'd played my final note with the band without even knowing it. Prior to heading back to Ann Arbor, we pulled into a McDonald's truck stop in the middle of Indiana, where my friends and I were already making plans for April and graduation when this coronavirus thing would be over. At the time, I didn't know what social work was. I didn't know Jclp existed despite being at U of M for 4 years and hadn't met any of my fellow cohort members, even though I overlapped with several of them during my time here. On a bit of a whim with some parental encouragement, I applied to SSW and Jclp in May and was thankfully admitted to both. I spent much of my summer of 2020 contemplating the benefits of starting at SSW and participating in Jclp in the fall, versus continuing a job search that increasingly looked like it was a dead end, given the hiring freeze imposed by U of M in April. Suffice to say, I chose the former and was incredibly grateful to have also been admitted to Jclp in August, something that I saw as an added bonus at the time instead of what it turned out to be, a truly transformative experience. In weekly seminars, I participated in some of the most thought-provoking discussions about Jewish philanthropy, Israel-Palestine, Jewish summer camps, and so much more. My cohort put on an incredibly successful communal conversation on environmental justice in the Jewish community with 6 amazing speakers with a diverse range of perspectives. I took some of the most amazing and rigorous Judaic studies classes and actually learned what social work is, and more importantly, how I can use it through my SSW classes. Further, my peers have pushed me into class discussions, led me to think differently, comforted me, and have become lifelong friends. I would be remiss if I didn't thank a few people today as well. First, Eileen Freed, Rachel Wall, and all of the staff of the Jewish Federation of Greater Ann Arbor, thank you for an amazing field placement experience. Thank you, Paige, for always being there for me, being an incredible field supervisor, and for all your coordination help with classes, communal conversation, and more. Thank you to all my Judaic studies and social work professors for inspiring me on a regular basis. Thank you, Alice and Carla, for taking a chance on me, believing in me, pushing me to think deeper, and for all you do to keep Jclp going. To previous Jclp alumni and last year's second years, thank you for showing me what it means to be a Jclp student and for laying the groundwork for the program's success. Thank you to the first years for being some of the most amazing people I could have imagined spending this past year with. You all are going to be great next year and this year. Thank you, Rachel, Moss, Emily, Miriam, Claire, and Erica for your friendship and support. I'm so grateful for our 2 years together, and please stay in touch. Finally, thank you to my parents and family for leading me to this opportunity, for believing in me, and for being a constant positive presence in my life. If I've learned anything these past 2 years, it's that social workers are needed now more than ever. We're needed in politics, schools, nonprofit organizations, community centers, and yes, the Jewish community, in addition to a myriad of other places. In an increasingly tumultuous world, I am reminded of the Mr. Rogers quote, "Look for the helpers." It is my hope that my peers and I will be the helpers in the world when and where we are most needed. I guess it's a perk that my name Ezra means help in Hebrew. Thanks, Mom and Dad. Thank you all for fostering this incredibly special program and for this amazing opportunity. I'm so grateful. Forever go blue.
Thank you, Ezra. I'm already getting a little teary. Next up, we have Miriam Chesterman, who will be introduced by Ellery.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ellery Rosenzweig, and I'm so happy to be introducing Miriam Chesterman. Oh, my God. Back in August, Miriam took me under her wing and made me feel so welcomed. Quickly, we became close friends, bonding over our favorite shows and our weekly trips to the Carytown Market. In the fall, we decided to facilitate a night of seminar together on Jews and fat liberation, and I felt so lucky to get this opportunity to work together. Miriam has amazing planning and organization skills. This year, Miriam went out of her way to create our super fun Jclp Shabbaton weekend. It was amazing. And also, she's by far the best texter and always available for a group chat vent session. Miriam, we're so blessed to have been in Jclp together. You're such a sweet, thoughtful, and silly person. I'm so sad to see you leave us, but excited to visit you wherever you end up next. Yay!
Hi, everyone. It's really hard to wrap my head around the fact that I'm standing here about to graduate from the program that I've called home for the last 2 years. I spent most of my recent moments in the last several months thinking about what this day would look like, finishing grad school and saying goodbye to all of my Jclp classmates, my professors, and most importantly, all of my homework. Now that I'm here today, I would just like to take a moment to reflect on the last 2 years. My fellow cohort members and I began this program in August of 2020, unsure of how we would navigate the strange concept of attending grad school on Zoom. I was so preoccupied by how I would make friends over a computer screen that I completely missed everyone in Jclp going from being acquaintances to some of my best friends in the world. Between the site visits, the field trips, conversing via discussion boards on Canvas, having intellectual conversations in seminar, apple picking, sukkah decorating, dessert eating, drinks at Bill's, communal conversation, and more, I can't imagine grad school without Jclp. It's been such a privilege to learn alongside all of my wonderful classmates, both the second-year cohort last year, this year, the first-year cohort this year, as well as Carla and Alice. I've been challenged to broaden my perspectives and see things from different points of view. I've complained about the many articles and books I've had to read, only to come out the other side with such a breadth of knowledge that I couldn't wait to tell my roommates what I talked about in seminar that week. When I think about what makes Jclp special, I think about the love for friendship, community, and learning that each of us in the program can say we share. It is something that is unmatched with any of my other academic experiences, and it's something that I hope I can once again find after graduation. When I think back to why I chose to do Jclp in the first place, I remember my time in the Avodah Service Corps in 2019, when I realized that I definitely wanted to be a social worker. I didn't have much of a strong Jewish community throughout undergrad, and once I was a part of Avodah, I knew that I wasn't ready to stop being a part of an intentional Jewish community. I was so excited to have found something that allowed me to integrate my Jewish values and community with a social work degree. While at first I was wary of the numerous requirements that came along with Jclp, I quickly learned that all of these additional requirements would pale in comparison to the experience that I would gain by being a part of the program. 2 years later, all I can say is that I feel so lucky to have stumbled across such an incredible group of people, filled with scholars, intellects, justice seekers, and friends. I have learned so much about myself, my values, the ins and outs of the Jewish community, both near and far, and the points of connection and disconnection within social justice work. I've had the opportunity to engage in self-reflection, and I've grown so much more than I could have imagined in just 2 years. I know that the last 2 years have not been perfect. We've had to navigate Zoom school, the reintegration of in-person classes, COVID precautions, changing leadership, newfound responsibilities, and more. I found that this little community is capable of harnessing so much togetherness, connection, and resilience, and I don't think that I could have made it through grad school without you all. All of this coming to an end is bittersweet. It's hard to picture my day-to-day life without my classmates, this program, but I'm also so excited to see how I can apply the lessons from Jclp to my own justice journey in the coming months. I want to say thank you to Carla for shaping so much of our first year together over Zoom, and to Alice for stepping in and making our second year so special. Thank you as well to my parents, my brothers, my bubby, my Aunt Shelley, and cousin Leah for being such an amazing support system the last 2 years. Thank you second years from last year for bringing my cohort into Jclp in such a thoughtful way. And thank you to the first years for all of our learning and growing that we've shared. Lastly, thank you to my second year cohort for everything. I can't wait to see what we do next.
Next up, we'll hear from Emily Gordon, who will be introduced by Jorgen.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jorgen Rieberg, and I have the distinct honor of introducing to the stage my dear friend, Emily Gordon. To me, Emily embodies the spirit of this program through her tireless encouragement of others, her perceptiveness towards the experiences of those within the program and beyond, her intellectual curiosity and brilliance, and a sort of genuine kindness that cannot be feigned nor emulated. And to make it even more remarkable, all of this from someone who grew up in that state down south, Ohio. There are those who say that time is the most valuable commodity of all. And when it comes to time, Emily's generosity and willingness to utilize it for the betterment of others is undeniable. Now it is our turn to practice a bit of attentiveness, much in the same way as she has done time and time again. For it is we who are truly fortunate to be spending this small moment in time listening to Emily's remarks. Thank you, Emily, for your role as a program assistant, for your role as a role model, but most importantly, for the friendship and love that you've cultivated as a member, now alumni of Jclp.
Oh my gosh. Thank you, Jorgen. So this past month, while thinking about the past 2 years, I find myself repeatedly wondering, how in the world did I get through that? I left a steady job during the pandemic to pursue a master's degree 6 years after graduating from undergrad. It was not easy. Not really realizing what I was doing, I started making a mental list of everyone and everything that helped guide me on this journey. First and foremost, the support and encouragement of my friends and my parents. My dog, Wookie, who deserves his own little cap, gown, and diploma for listening in to all my virtual classes. The genius music of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. A ton of takeout. 2 tons of coffee. The list kept building. I noted my fieldwork colleagues and supervisors at JFS Detroit and National Council of Jewish Women, who taught me how to think critically about the field of social work and consider what my place could be in it. Our second years, the class of 2021, and our first years, the class of 2023, who learned alongside us and had our backs through group projects and venting sessions. My cohort, of course, and we, along with our program coordinator, Paige, and interim director, Alice, and director, Carla, challenged us to step out of our comfort zones and grow into who we want to become. Growth seemed to be the theme of my time here at U of M. Without even knowing it at the time, it turned out that so many people were helping me grow. Even people who are no longer physically here, like my grandparents, Ruth and Nathaniel Gordon, and Mary and Lawrence Morgan, have helped me along this journey. Certain things that I learned from them have stuck in my head and helped me realize that this is the path I am meant to be on. A spiritual ancestor, Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, who some of us took a course on this year, was also a guiding light for me. His transcendent and prophetic words urged me to engage life with a sense of wonder, of radical amazement and gratitude for the ineffable, to concern ourselves with the ordinary, to find balance between polarities, to respond to our divine responsibility as human beings to care for one another, to realize that we need each other in order to live our fullest lives. I feel like he would have liked the following analogy by writer and visual artist Morgan Harper Nichols in her poem Lessons from Wildflowers, before which she prefaced in a social media post, "If you ever happen to see a field of wildflowers containing more than one species, there's a reason for that." In the book, 8 Master Lessons from Nature, author Gary Ferguson writes about how each wildflower has its own strength, and together, they create diversity in the landscape. Some have deeper roots to help them survive during the drought, and others have waxy leaves to contain moisture. Every flower has different survival strategies, and as a result, they are able to keep the ecosystem going, surviving through harsh conditions to give the other flowers time to recover. In this book, Ferguson goes on to quote Maya Angelou, who advised parents to teach their children that in diversity, there is beauty and there is strength. We learn from the wildflowers that we belong to each other and our strengths support one another. As Gwendolyn Brooks wrote in her poem for singer and activist Paul Robeson, we are each other's harvest, we are each other's business, we are each other's magnitude and bond. Now for Nichols' poem. Who are we without each other? What is the landscape without diversity? May the wide range of wildflowers in this meadow remind you of what your soul already knows. We are strong in different ways, and that is what helps us all grow. Together, we will grow. May the wildflowers teach us. Together, we will grow. Our beauty is in our wholeness. Our aliveness is in our togetherness. Tom Petty had been telling me for years that I belong among the wildflowers. Thanks to my education here at University of Michigan, I now understand why. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Next up, we have Moss Herberholtz, who will be introduced by Rachel.
Hi, I'm Rachel Burstein, and I'm excited to be introducing Moss Herberholtz. One of my first memories of Moss was running into him on the Diag during the first week of classes, with his slackline set up between 2 trees. Not only did running into a new friend on the Diag make this enormous university feel smaller, but it really was cool to see Moss not only being himself, but also excitedly showing strangers on the Diag how to slackline. Moss and I also have a shared love of Jewish communal singing and playing board games on Shabbat. I'm grateful to have learned more deeply about both of these things from him, like when he taught me a new song on our Shabbaton, and when he taught me that a game is best introduced to a new group of people when only one person explains the rules. No, really, it's quite effective. Moss's adventurous energy, willingness to help others, and fun patterned outfits are appreciated in JCLP. He reminds us all that sometimes you just need to dance.
There's an adaptation of Anthem, a song by Leonard Cohen, that I love to sing at the end of each of the song circles that I co-organize and help facilitate. Its lyrics have always struck me as profoundly relevant. The words are, "Forget your perfect offering, just ring the bells that still can ring. There is a crack in everything, that's how the light gets in." I applied to JCLP in the fall of 2018 and was admitted in February 2019, long before COVID-19 was a twinkle in the eye of the world. Through an unexpected turn of events, I requested a deferral and planned to begin my graduate school experience in the fall of 2020. One important reason I had chosen U of M was because it offered a program that was fully in person, something I believed was very important for my learning experience. So it comes as no surprise that the fully virtual program I found myself in during the fall of 2020 was not what I had imagined would allow me to bring forth my perfect offering. Nevertheless, I decided I might as well make the most out of the experience. While I might not have the most optimal conditions, I believed my graduate school experience could still be rich and fruitful, and that there was no time like the present to continue on the path I had chosen for myself. I felt reassured that at least I would have the extra support of the learning structure provided by the Jewish Communal Leadership Program, another very important factor in my decision to attend U of M, which would allow me to have a close-knit group of peers with whom to share the struggles of Zoom school while learning together about Jewish communal work and the issues relevant to Jewish communities. While not all of the graduate school bells I had hoped to ring were operational, I was determined to ring the bells that still could ring. There is a crack in everything. It was my own personal brokenness and subsequent healing that led me to choose a career in social work. Throughout my life, I have experienced a variety of difficulties, many of them directly related to my mental health. The cracks that I hold within myself have been splayed open time and time again. And in coming to graduate school in the midst of a global pandemic, the unique challenges of readjusting to life as a student in a new place without a strong social support system while experiencing isolation, loneliness, anxiety, and heartbreak led those cracks to once again open wide over the course of my time here. In my life, the times that have been the darkest, in which I hit some of my lowest points, have typically been those that I look back on as moments that preceded the greatest growth and personal development in my life. While my graduate school experience was certainly more challenging than I ever could have imagined when I began my application in 2018, this experience has brought me so much light. I have learned so much about myself, social work, and Jewish community. I have gained so much experience through my time at my field placements at Healthy Choice Community Counseling Services and at Jewish Family Services of Metro Detroit. I have cherished the opportunity to organize educational, social, and advocacy events for the Student Association for Psychedelic Studies in my role as president. I am so grateful for the community I have built for myself here in Michigan. Through my time with my family, my friends in JCLP and beyond, in the School of Social Work, and in the singing, dancing, and fire-spinning communities that I have become a part of. I know that I would not have been able to make it through as strong as I have without my family, my friends, and the Jewish Communal Leadership Program. Ultimately, I am proud to say that I feel confident moving forward in the work I want to do, and I cannot wait to bring my joy and light into the world as I continue on my journey through life. Forget your perfect offering. Just ring the bells that still can ring. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. 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 Thank you.
Thank you, Moss. Next up, we'll hear from Erica Kunfink, who will be introduced by Lydia.
Hello, my name is Lydia Greenberg, and it is my pleasure to introduce Erica Kunfink. So I want to start by saying something that has been mentioned, which you all know, which is that it's been a tough couple of years. The second years had to start their first year in the middle of lockdown. And all the stress and the uncertainty that comes with grad school on top of a pandemic. And then move to a mix of in-person and virtual classes for their second year. The transitions, the unknowns, the will it happen or will it not happen has been disruptive, and it's been really hard. Over the past year, I have really admired Erica's ability to prioritize her safety and the safety of those around her, staying on Zoom when she needed to, being extra careful about masking during group gatherings, and doing what she could to make sure we were all being safe and responsible. Her diligence, her care for her health and for ours in this time, I think, is a real model for how we should all be taking care of one another. And that impulse, that ability to care, to be a responsible adult in the room, is also a big part of what makes her a great social worker. Erica, I've admired your tenacity, how true you are to your convictions and your values, your dry wit, your impeccable fashion sense, and your clear passion for social work. I look forward to seeing you around IPSY this summer.
Oh boy, we're coming in hot. I thought I might sing a song instead of giving a speech because that would be easier for me, but in JCLP we do hard things, and my family has a saying that we do it because it's hard, so I'm giving a speech which is going to be hard, so here we go. I have thought about this very moment quite a bit. I actually started imagining this moment before I entered the JCLP program. Me with my cap and gown, degree in hand, family watching. I thought a lot about the mark that I wanted to make on JCLP and my time in the program and what others might say about me after I graduated. Wow, that Erica, she's really amazing. And her outfits are so cool. So I sought out to fulfill this vision for myself, grad school Erica. I worked hard, I did a lot of extra things and took a lot of extra classes because I wanted to soak up every ounce of this rarefied opportunity. I took on a difficult field placement, learning how to be a clinical social worker at the Family Assessment Clinic, where it sees children and families who've experienced immense trauma. I made academic projects personally meaningful. I wanted to be able to look back and say, yep, I really showed up for grad school. In most ways, I fulfilled this image for myself of Erica, the hardworking, overachieving grad student. Except this vision of my grad school experience was inherently flawed and missing a crucial part of what has actually made this experience so rewarding, our JCLP community. I'm not a big joiner. I never went to summer camp, even Jewish summer camp, or experienced or joined anything where people made you wear the same t-shirt. As a child, having a best friend felt suffocating. It felt like I was limiting my options. To join a club has always felt like a potential erasure of my freedom, of my creativity. Last year, in a JCLP seminar, I was going on and on about this, how I don't like groups, et cetera, and Carla stopped me and said, but Erica, I think you like this group. And she was right. JCLP is a group where its container has offered me the most creativity and freedom. It's a group where I have felt completely proud to be a member, and I think it's because it's not actually a group or a club, but rather a community co-created by its members, ever-changing to fit the needs and wishes of new students and always responding to the world at large. JCLP stretches far and wide to encompass a diverse body of students, faculty, alumni, and community members. To be in JCLP, you don't have to be one thing. In fact, it encourages you to contain multitudes. JCLP has complicated and enriched my own understanding of what it means to be in community with others. It is more than showing up in the same room or on the same screen week after week. It is more than wearing the same t-shirt in a photograph. Being part of the JCLP community has meant holding in mind the 14 other voices and experiences of my classmates and our professors at all times, especially when their thoughts and perspectives are different from my own. To be part of a community requires one to be attuned to both interpersonal interactions while having a sense of the larger community, a mix of macro and micro social work practice, if you will. To be truly part of a community is an act of love, of giving and receiving it, and it has required me to be open and vulnerable in order to truly receive it. I never imagined how deeply I would come to admire and at times rely on the people I'm graduating with today. These brilliant individuals with whom I have walked this narrow bridge of graduate school for the past 2 years have witnessed me at my worst and my best moments. These are people who have profoundly shaped my graduate school experience in ways that I never could have conceived. We have a kind of practice in JCLP where we tell each other in the group what we appreciate about each other. It's kind of like a roast, but the opposite. In this spirit, I wanted to offer these appreciations today. Rachel. Your fiery passion for equity, social justice, and a lifelong pursuit of learning and asking why inspires me to dig deeper and question more. Moss. May we all learn to be more authentically ourselves by watching your loyalty to your true self, no matter where you are or what the dress code is. Claire. The generously loving, empathic way you move through the world and attend to those around you has blessed our cohort with a sense of warmth that has allowed us to have difficult conversations with ease and grace. Ezra, I know you're graduating with a macro social work concentration, but I'm convinced that you have a clinical social work heart. I am grateful for the fact that you have asked me how I am doing and asked me how I'm feeling literally every time I see you. Emily, I have admired the way you hold yourself to the highest of standards while staying balanced, optimistic, and centered. I often find myself thinking, wow, how does she do it all? Miriam, I have really come to rely on your quick wit, your excellent organizational skills, and your generous kindness. You have the unique ability to find the sweetness in difficult moments and to give others the benefit of the doubt. And now for a couple of brief thank yous. Thank you to my family for steadfastly and unconditionally supporting this chapter of my life with interest and curiosity, as you have done with every other endeavor that I have taken on. Thank you to my grandma, Dr. Barbara Kane, an educational psychologist, and my grandfather, Dr. Howard Fink, a psychotherapist, may his memory be a blessing, for helping to create a family culture that was curious about the interior worlds of others and paving the way for me to follow in these footsteps. And most of all, thank you to my husband, Eric. Our marriage is the most rewarding club I have ever joined. This experience truly would not have been possible without him. Eric prepared me 3 meals a day on most days throughout grad school. He brought me snacks and reminded me to drink water during 9-hour Zoom class days. He edited my papers and even learned alongside me, at times reading the articles that I found fascinating so we could talk about them. While I was in school, he took over my central job in our house and watered all 105 plants every week. I am forever grateful for our partnership and everything that we're building together. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. Your outfits are always cool. Next, we'll have Claire Lauer, introduced by Caroline.
Hi, everyone. I'm Caroline Strauss, and I'm thrilled to be introducing you all today to Claire Lauer. When I first met Claire, I can only describe the feeling as like I was meeting an old friend for the first time in a while. She just made me feel like at peace and comfortable. She brings such a calming and comforting presence to any space she's in. and as an anxious first-year student, that really meant a lot to me. To me, she truly embodies what it means to be a social worker. She truly cares for everyone around her, and I mean, her Instagram is literally Claire Cares. I always look forward to our discussions in seminar because I know that Claire could provide some really thought-provoking and constructive comments that always made me think more about what we were talking about. Specifically, I really appreciated her engagement when I had the chance to co-facilitate a seminar. It would always bring me joy when Claire would express her thoughts and apologize for rambling, because to me, that really was just a sign that she was so passionate about the topic at hand. I think it's safe to say that all of us JCLPers' lives are better because Claire is in them. I have no doubt that you will make a tremendous impact in whatever you choose to do, and I'm so happy that you're sticking around in Ann Arbor for a little longer.
Hello. When I think back over the last 2 years, my experience of earning an MSW is completely entwined with being a part of the Jewish Communal Leadership Program, and I am so thankful for that. I knew that beginning this program at the height of the pandemic would influence my experience, but I don't think I was fully prepared for how difficult the pandemic would make much of my time in the School of Social Work. Through JCLP, I was given something to hold on to when the program and the world overwhelmed me. The relationships I formed, the conversations we had, and the silliness we shared gave me grounding at critical moments throughout the past 2 years. I strongly believe that places hold importance because of the people you share them with, and I want to thank the people who made JCLP such an enthralling place to be. Carla and Alice, thank you for leading our cohort in this program with compassion, deep thought, and care. My identity as an American Jewish person is one that I cherish, and it is also one that I did not fully comprehend before beginning this program. Thank you, Carla, Alice, and thank you to all of my Judaic Studies professors for bringing depth, history, and creativity to this identity for me. The students of JCLP have been the shining light of my MSW experience. To the graduated 2021 cohort and to the future 2023 graduating cohort of JCLP, thank you all for leading with love and passion, and thank you for teaching me all that you did. To my cohort members, Ezra, Miriam, Moss, Rachel, Emily, and Erica, thank you with my whole heart for the experience of going through this program with you, and thank you for deciding to pursue your MSWs when you did. Also, thank you to Paige, the only reason JCLP functions smoothly and beautifully each year. So when I graduated high school at Community in Ann Arbor, we were given a time to give a speech. My mom was a teacher at Community and played such a strong role in my decision to attend that school, so I spent a significant amount of time thanking her in that speech. Unfortunately, I did not spend as much time thanking my dad in that speech. And my sisters have never let me live it down. It works out well that my dad, Roger Lauer, is the reason I chose to pursue a career in mental health. He has been the best role model and guidepost I could have asked for. So thank you, Dad, for all of the big and small ways that you support me. I want to give my equal thanks to my mom, Ellen Stone, the human embodiment of a warm hug. Thank you for all the ways you've cheered me up and cheered me on. To my sisters, Becca and Abby, thank you for being my best friends. I love you both. And thank you to my partner, Corey. I love you too. And finally, thank you to every family member, friend, professor, and person who helped make this journey, who has helped me through this journey. I have endless gratitude for you all. As I learned in my Intro to Yiddish class, I will end with one final thank you. Adank.
Next, we'll hear from Rachel Levy, who will be introduced by Abby.
Sorry, I'm recovering from Claire's speech. Hi, my name is Abby Califf, and I have the absolute pleasure of introducing Rachel Levy. Rachel, you are brilliantly, extraordinarily, exquisitely, and fabulously Rachel. You carry with you the strength and grace needed to support people, the charisma and spark needed to guide people, and the love and sweetness required to still remain you while carrying the weight of others' stories in your hands. Your passion for Judaism and community is thrilling and infectious, with a voice so lovely and soothing as it invites others to join in. For those of you who don't know Rachel, 1, I'm sorry, and 2, it's not too late. She'll welcome you with open arms into her fan club. Rachel was my Jclp buddy, meaning she was the first person I met in the program. The day after I met Rachel, I woke up with so much excitement, similar to the feeling of meeting a new crush. While I knew that meeting Rachel marked the beginning of grad school for me, and perhaps the beginning of a new best friendship, I didn't know how much she would play a role in making me a social worker. Rachel, I've seen firsthand the impact you have on those around you. The people who know you are truly lucky people. I don't have to say good luck.
There are real tissues up here, so don't need my wad anymore. Anyway, thank you so much, Abby. When I sat down to write this 2 nights ago, I really had no idea where to begin. For a program that has honed my reflection skills, comfort with sharing my own vulnerabilities, and ability to discuss complex feelings and topics, writing a speech that summed up the entirety of my experience here felt impossible. Then it dawned on me, most people in attendance won't know who I am, so I should start with an introduction. So, in addition to what Abby said, hi, my name is Rachel. I use she and her pronouns, and I am a graduating second-year Jclp student studying interpersonal practice at the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor School of Social Work. I am passionate about sexual and reproductive health and education, building inclusive Jewish communities, disability justice, and thinking creatively about community safety. I'm originally from Arizona and have called Ann Arbor home for the last 6 years after completing a BA in sociology and now my master's on this campus. I have an incredibly supportive and loving family, a wonderful support system here and throughout the country, and have been fortunate to find attentive and gracious mentors who have taught me so much about who I am and how I can do this work in a sustainable and authentic way. The reason why I am here goes back to a film screening of Ask Dr. Ruth that I was invited to late in my junior year of undergrad. It was hosted at the Mishkin Theater on Liberty, and my friend and I were chronically late, so we sat in the back left corner behind and next to 2 elderly Jewish couples. I had been given no context for the film aside from my friend saying, "You want to go to this? You might like it." For those of you who haven't seen or heard of this film, it is about the life and legacy of Dr. Ruth Bestheimer, a Jewish Holocaust survivor who came to the United States and pursued an illustrious career in sex therapy. She became known as America's sex therapist, and people listened to her, trusted her, and respected her. After the film, I Googled how to become a sex therapist, and one of the first links that I clicked on informed me that I would need a relevant master's, of which a master's in social work is one. This isn't the only piece of the puzzle that brought me to where I am now, but I do consider it the moment where it all came together for me. I wanted to work with people. I cared about each individual's right to safely access information about their sexual health and gender identity, and I was also an unabashedly proud Jewish woman, then and now. Fast forward 2 really strange years of virtual classes, postponed and canceled travels, a few COVID scares, meeting new people, engaging in exhilarating conversations that range from Jewish psychedelic experiences to Jewish dating apps, to Jewish fundraising models, to Palestine, to meeting some of the best humans I have in my life, to learning more about myself than I thought I could in such a short period of time, to becoming a master's in social work and a certified Jewish communal leader. This is the part of my speech where I thank all of the awesome humans who have gotten me here. I'd like to start with Maya, my delightful sister / upcoming local DJ legend. Maya, thank you for joining me out here in the Midwest and being such a safe person to always come to with my self-doubts, celebrations, questions, and terrible jokes. Thank you for making me a big sister and teaching me so much about how to care about people. I love being your best friend, and I love that you're mine. Thank you to my parents, Nancy and Doug, for never setting their expectations of me too high and teaching me a lot about interpersonal and group dynamics. You have woven such a warm security blanket for me over the years, and I am truly grateful for all that you have done for me. Thank you to my New York family for booking flights and hotels to my 2020 graduation, rolling with the punches of a global pandemic, and loving me enough to go through the whole process again this year. I love you all, and I love getting to celebrate with you here this weekend. A big thank you to Sam, who has cared for me and dealt with me throughout this pandemic and for the last 3 years. You are patient and funny and a really good cook. Thank you for being such a supportive and goofy person to come home to. Thank you to Carla. Yes, Carla. Thank you to Carla for making me feel like a Jewish leader before I even got to this program. Your constant belief in me has done wonders for my self-esteem, and I appreciate your mentorship more than I can put into words. Alice? Sorry. Alice, thank you for being consistently attentive and available to us this year. Your vision for Jclp, which included bringing in more micro-practitioner speakers and diving into the history of Palestine-Israel, has been deeply appreciated. Paige, I don't know where you are, but thank you for being so encouraging and positive at every turn. You're the queen of positive reframes, and I've learned so much from you about resilience and boundary setting. Thank you to all of my professors and supervisors over the last 2 years. I can't name you all because I don't have the time, but if you're listening to this and enjoyed having me as a student, please email me and let's get a drink this summer. And finally, thank you to my cohort and the 2 cohorts that I was so lucky to learn alongside during my time in this program. Thank you for making the pandemic feel small, for nourishing my mind and body, for celebrating big and small moments with me, and for growing me into the human that I now am. I always have more to say, but I will end with a song lyric that I love and that embodies what being a social worker means to me. This is from the song Beautiful by Carole King, and I'm not going to sing it. You've got to get up every morning with a smile on your face and show the world all the love in your heart, that then people are going to treat you better. You're going to find, yes you will, that you're beautiful as you feel. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Rachel. All right, it's time to graduate from Jclp. Okay. So first, I just want to thank our graduates for sharing a bit about yourselves and your experiences. And I also want to take a moment to thank all of the family and friends and field instructors and faculty who have been a part of shaping each of these individuals. It's been really beautiful to sit here and share how much you all have meant to them. So we could have a round of applause. All right, so we will present books as gifts and certificates one by one in alphabetical order and say a brief word about each of you, which some of it's already been said, so it'll be a bit repetitive. So, Ezra Brown, come on up. So Ezra, when I took this position over the last summer, everyone kept commenting on how much Ezra had changed. I really didn't know what they were talking about because I just met him, but everyone was saying, Ezra, wow, Ezra, you're so different. Ezra, you've changed. It's amazing. And over the year, it became really clear to me what they were talking about and how much Ezra's grown in this program. He just has really put himself out there in a way that I understand he didn't before. Ezra has really put himself in class conversations. He's productively challenged his peers and not shied away from voicing his opinions, even when those opinions are a little different than other people's opinions. Ezra is also known among his peers for always doing all the reading, literally all of the reading, and I can tell when you've done all the reading, and never missing an assignment deadline, yet still having time to dedicate his Saturdays to whatever Michigan sporting event was happening. His ability to find balance is really aspirational. Ezra's also a really wonderful combination of very straightforward and very inquisitive. So when we thought about a book for Ezra, Paige, who was his field supervisor, immediately suggested start with why, how great leaders inspire others to take action. So Ezra, as you move into the professional world, we hope you'll continue to voice your opinions, to not hold back, and to inspire others around you. I'm going to switch microphones. That one was not working for my height. Okay. Next up, we have Miriam Chesterman. All right. So I've actually known Miriam since she was, I think, a sophomore and enrolled in one of my undergraduate classes here at Michigan. Miriam can be pretty quiet sometimes, but she's always paying very close attention. And over the years, I've been really glad to see how much more comfortable Miriam's become putting herself out there, speaking up, and really advocating for herself. She's also brought really important conversations to Jclp, including the one she co-led with Ellery on Judaism and fat liberation, which was an important topic that I think really challenged a lot of our preconceived notions and ideas in seminar. As she's been thinking about her first real job after graduation, Miriam has been thinking a lot about what her values are. What does she want in a job? What does she want in an organization that she works for? What skills does she want to bring to a job? And how does she want to set boundaries around her work life and her home life, because she's done with homework? So one conversation we've been having in Jclp is how to be your authentic self in the workplace. So when we were thinking about books for Miriam, I thought of the book, The Buddha Walks into the Office. Come up here, Paige. Which is a really important guide for new professionals who are thinking really critically, as Miriam is, about what she wants her working life to look like and feel like. So Miriam, we are really excited to see what life in Chicago brings you. Congratulations. Emily Gordon. All right. So hi, Emily. So Emily came into Jclp as a community change student focused on macro social work. And over the course of the year, she's been slowly chipping away at the idea of what it might mean to bring micro social work and macro social work practice together. From thinking about and researching intergenerational trauma in Jewish communities, to learning about chaplaincy and pastoral care, about once every 2 months or so, Emily has asked the question, do I maybe want to be a clinical social worker? What I think she has come to realize is that it's not such a hard binary. And in fact, she has taken a job where she is going to get practice melding macro and micro skills together. So Emily, this feels a bit on the nose as a book, but that's okay. Paige and I thought this book, Broken Fragments, Jewish Experiences of Alzheimer's Disease Through Diagnosis, Adaptation, and Moving On, would be an excellent book to start off your new career at Jewish Family Services of Metro Detroit. And we are just really excited to see how you bring your skills to the Metro Detroit Jewish community and building a really important program for caregivers. So thank you, Emily, for all you've done. And Perry is here. Perry, you're so lucky to get Emily. All right, Moss Herberholtz, come on up. So, there are 3 things that I think of when I think of Moss. You've heard them already from others: singing, dancing, and being outdoors. I think my first image of Moss is him dancing up to orientation with a speaker in hand, probably somewhere in the courtyard area. And we all really got to experience Moss's love of singing at our last closing seminar for Jclp when he led us in a song circle. And you all got to get a tiny taste of it today, but you'll get a little bit more when we're done, when he and Rachel lead us together. In addition to his love of music and dancing, Moss is passionate about the outdoors. He's headed off to New Hampshire and then to Colorado to both lead wilderness trips and facilitate wilderness therapy programs with Bamidbar. we searched around, I told Moss this a little bit, we searched around for a good book on Jewish song, which felt like more like how I know Moss is through Jewish song, but we were advised by Rachel that none of the books really were quite right for Moss. So after that consultation, we instead decided to select a book that spoke to Moss's passion for the outdoors and for his creative approaches to clinical social work. So the book is A Wild Faith, Jewish Ways into Wilderness. And Moss, we hope you'll continue to be someone who shares your passions and your joy so enthusiastically with every community you encounter. Congratulations. Erica Kunfink. And her very cool outfits. Okay. So Erica brings a big vision to, I think, every single thing she does. And Jclp is no exception to that. Erica has taken on a lot of leadership within Jclp, and she often pushes herself and everyone around her to do more. I think Erica might epitomize the expression, go big or go home. At the same time, Erica has been practicing just a tiny bit of stepping back and letting go and not trying to do all of the things all of the time. I think it's been a really useful practice for her to figure out ways to prioritize the things that are most important to her and give those things 150% of her energy while she gives everything else just 100% of her energy. In addition to all of her big visioning in Jclp, Erica has been thinking about what she wants her family's religious and cultural traditions and home to look like. So we thought the book Beyond Chrismica, The Christian-Jewish Interfaith Family in the United States, would be a fitting book for you as you and Eric continue to cultivate a religious and cultural practice that feels right for your family. And we hope that as you continue your clinical social work, that it'll be helpful in supporting other families. So Erica, we hope that in addition to building a home beyond Chrismica, you'll continue to bring big visions and maybe practice stepping back once in a while, as you've done this year. Congratulations. Claire Lauer. So Claire has brought, as you've heard, her really strong commitment to racial justice and living her values to Jclp. She, along with Erica, facilitated an important conversation on Black Jewish experiences and racism within the Jewish community and how white Jews could be better allies. She often reflects and pushes us to reflect on her own positionality and our own positionality in the Jewish world. Claire has also brought a lot of curiosity and reflection about how she shows up in Jclp and in her work as a social worker to our seminar in different ways, in ways that I've really admired. So it's tough to pick a book for Claire. It was kind of tough for everybody. It took a really long time. So it was tough to pick a book for Claire because she's so many passions and interests. But after our second to last seminar on Jews and sex, led by Rachel and Abby and Caroline, we landed on Adrienne Rich's new biography. Ooh, it's the first one I get which picks up on so many of the themes that Claire has brought to us this semester and seminar and over the year, about compulsory heterosexuality, about celebrating queerness, and about creating spaces in the Jewish community that are not just accepting, but are deeply inclusive and celebratory of LGBTQ Jews, which I think is a really important note that she's brought to us. So Claire, we hope you'll continue to bring your commitments to social justice and authentic inclusivity into your future work and communities. Thank you. Rachel Levy. Last, but absolutely in no way the least. Rachel Levy. So Rachel, when we were thinking about what comes to mind about what you bring to Jclp, there were two things that come to mind. First is a tremendous amount of enthusiasm, which I think probably you got a little taste of when she was up here earlier. And second, a passion for raising gendered issues and youth issues in the Jewish community and advocating for women and teens. I first got to talk with Rachel last year when she was working on a podcast interviewing youth leaders in Jewish youth groups, where it was really important to her to uplift those voices instead of uplifting the voices of others. She came back to this topic in the winter when she, along with Abby and Caroline, led a session on Jews and sex that focused on the experiences of Jewish youth in summer camps and youth groups. She also stepped up to lead a session on job hunting for graduating students, for all students, and made sure to include the Director of Gender Equity and Hiring project. Which is all to say that when I think about Rachel, in addition to her enthusiasm, I also think about her her passion for gendered issues and feminist issues. So Rachel, we also had a tough time deciding on books for you, but we selected Ballots, Babies, and Banners of Peace, American Jewish Women's Activism, to speak to your interest in Jewish roles in movements around fertility, sexual liberation, and Jewish women's roles in activism throughout history. We hope you'll keep bringing your enthusiasm and these passions and your work to create spaces for people whose voices are often spoken over to your future work. So, could I have all the graduates come up here, actually? Maybe bring your certificate for a cute photo op also. All right. So it is my pleasure to present to you the 2022 graduates of the Jewish Communal Leadership Program. We'll send out photos to everyone also. So thank you again to all of you for being here, for supporting students, and for supporting Jclp. Before I turn it over to Moss and Rachel and maybe everybody, to close our ceremony with song, just a really quick logistics note, which is after this, the reception will be held out in the McGregor Commons, which are the sort of entrance where you came in, and those who want to can feel free to take their food outside because it looks like it's not sunny but not raining. You're also welcome to eat inside. So again, thank you all for joining us, and Moss and Rachel will lead us in song.
Okay, let's party. So as you did hear from a lot of our speeches, music has played a very formative role in not only our Jewish identities, but also our human growing. And at least in Mas and I's experience, and I'll speak for myself, I feel like singing as a group is a really amazing way of culminating a shared experience. When you're all in sync with one another, when you're all listening to each other, when you're also hearing the differences in the voices in the space, and sometimes the words of the same song in the same space. It just reminds you of the beauty of difference and also the beauty of where we all came from, but we've all decided for one reason or another to all show up here today. And so the song that we chose is called Olam Chesed Yibaneh. We're going to teach it to you and then sing it all together. It is in your pamphlet beneath Carla's headshot on page, I guess it would be page 2. And so the way that this is going to work is we're going to teach it. So I'll sing a line, and then Moss will sing that same line with all of you. So we'll do some repeating, some teaching. And then we'll find ourselves at some place in the learning, and we'll sing it all together. The words are there, but we did want to teach you this very simple and beautiful part that repeats itself many times throughout the song. So if you find yourself lost in the Hebrew words or the English words or something like that, you can always return to this line. It goes lai 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 lai, or nai 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 nai, or die 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 die, or whatever. Yeah, whatever you really want to sing. Yeah. And it goes like this. So I'll sing it, and then Moss will sing it with all of you. La 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 la. Ya la 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 ya la la la. And that's half the song. So now if you'll turn your eyes to the words, I'll teach you the Hebrew parts, and then I'll hand it over to Moss for the English parts. So go ahead and repeat after me. Olam chesed yibaneh. Ya la 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 ya la la la. Olam chesed ibaneh. Yalalai, lai, lai, yalalai, lai. Same words, but Olam chesed ibaneh. Olam chesed ibaneh. Yalalai, nai, nai, yananai, nai. Olam chesed ibaneh. Olam chesed ibaneh. Yananai, nai, nai, yananai, nai.
Okay, so the English words are actually they change. Each line is a little different, so it's helpful to sing along. But the tune is actually the same as the Hebrew. So, yeah. So so we're just gonna go through the song and just remembering that the first line would be, "I will build this world from love." And then the second line uses the same tune, "And you will build this world from love." And then it goes up for the second two. And if we build this world from love, then God will build this world from love. So it's pretty simple. And again, you can always come back to the Ananias, but we're just going to go through. So we sing and no more call and response. We're just going to go. Olam chesed ibaneh, yananai, nai, nai, yananai, nai. 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 Now we're switching to the English. I will build this world from love. Yananai, nai, nai, yananai, nai. And you must build this world from love. Yananai, nai, nai, yananai, nai. And if we build this world from love, yananai, nai, nai, yananai, nai. Then God will build this world from love. Yananai, 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 yananai. And back to the Hebrew. Olam chesed ibaneh. Yananai, 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 yananai. Olam chesed ibaneh. Yananai, 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 yananai. Olam chesed ibaneh, yananai, nai, nai, yananai, nai. Olam chesed ibaneh, yananai, nai, nai, yananai, nai. I will build this world from love, yananai, nai, nai, yananai, nai. And you must build this world from love. Yadadai, dai, dai, yadadai, dai. And if we build this world from love, yadadai, dai, dai, yadadai, dai, 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 then God will build this world from love. Yadadai, dai, dai, yadadai, dai. The Hebrew one more time. Olam chesed ibaneh, yadadai, dai, dai, yadadai, dai. Olam chesed ibaneh, yadadai, dai, dai, yadadai, dai, dai. Olam chesed ibaneh, yadadai, dai, dai, yadadai, dai, dai. Olam chesed ibaneh, yadadai, dai, dai, yadadai, dai. And now food.